Who are you thinking of this Yom HaShoah? Here at Leobeck College Library, we'd like to introduce you to the story of Meyer and Esther Bogdansky. Meyer and Esther met as members of the Bund Party in Poland, and the Bund was an Eastern European Jewish socialist movement active in pre-World War II Eastern Europe. The Bund really focused on the future of European Jewry in the diaspora and establishing rights and future and identity. They married in 1935, but were tragically separated in 1939 upon the outbreak of war in Poland. Meyer and Esther tragically never met each other again. Meyer discovered after the war that Esther and most of Meyer's family were killed in Auschwitz. We received a box of documents from Meyer's later years, and in it we found correspondences with a Polish friend of his. Here we see that in 2003, more than 60 years after him and Esther were separated, he was reaching out to Yad Vashem to find out more about his late wife Esther's fate. And from Yad Vashem, in these email exchanges, we find out that Esther was captured along with her fellow Bundist activists. She was arrested and interrogated alongside them before her death. We also find that Yad Vashem was not certain about the fate of her husband Meyer, but we know that Meyer settled in East London. He had a successful career as a Yiddish language poet, composer, cultural leader, and stayed true to his Jewish socialist ideals and continued advocating for Bundism. Meyer never remarried. Meyer passed away in 2005, and he donated many of his book collections, songbooks, and original manuscripts to the Leobeck College. Who are you thinking of this Yom HaShoah?
On Yom HaShoah, I'm thinking about Adele Sperling. She was an assistant in the library at the Hochschule Seminary in Berlin, the progressive rabbinical school. She was in her late 20s when in 1943 she was deported to Auschwitz and murdered there.
I'm thinking today about Tommy Reichenthal. Tommy Reichenthal is a man in his late 80s. He's the father of a member of my community in Dublin, and he is a Holocaust survivor. As a child, he was taken to Bergen-Belsen, and as a child he was liberated when the British Army entered Bergen-Belsen in 1945. Within the last 20 years, he has dedicated himself to Holocaust education in Ireland, for which he has been recognised by both the British and Irish governments. I'm proud to consider him a friend, and I admire everything he does and stands for and what he's made from his terrible ordeal.
This Yom HaShoah, I'm thinking about Friedel Dicker-Brandeis. She was a Jewish woman artist who trained at the Bauhaus, worked as an architect and designer, and then when she was interned at Tarazan, she taught children art, expressionist art, to help them deal with the darkest times. She left with the children and was interned at the family camp in Auschwitz, where she was murdered at the age of 46.
This Yom HaShoah, I will be remembering Rabbi Regina Jonas, the first woman that we know of to have been ordained as a rabbi. In fact, she was ordained privately in 1935. This year, therefore, we are commemorating the 90th anniversary of her ordination. Sometimes I think that when we remember people from the Shoah, we only remember the past. We remember who they were and the lives that they lived. And sometimes we don't think enough about the lives that they might have lived if they'd survived. What might have been different in the world if the rupture of the Shoah, the destruction and the death hadn't happened. I think a lot about what might have happened if Rabbi Regina Jonas hadn't been murdered in Auschwitz in 1944. If she hadn't been murdered, if her legacy hadn't been locked away in the archives in East Berlin and forgotten to the world, we would have known that women could be rabbis before the 1970s. This year, Liobet College is celebrating the anniversary of the first woman ordained in Europe, Rabbi Dr. Jackie Tabik, celebrating 50 years since her ordination. That's 40 whole years of women missing out on being in the rabbinate because Rabbi Regina Jonas was murdered. So that's who I'm remembering this year. I'm remembering the legacy that she created, the work that she did when she was interned in Theresienstadt. And I'm also remembering the future that was wiped out for 40 years before we were able to come back to ordaining women in Europe.